Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today we're going to be talking about sound healing. We'll learn a lot more about it when we introduce our guest, but if you think about it, we're just so much more than our body. And each of us as individuals has a certain vibration as a soul. So those of you out there that are developing your mediumship, you know that when you tap into a particular energy, it's recognizable to you whether you have met them before or not because of our empathic abilities. This vibration or resonance is generated by sort of a protean cloud of light particles. And we talk a lot about light, but we also have that frequency of sound. So today we're going to be talking about sound healing. Jennifer Warters, Warters, I'm not saying water in the Southern way. Jennifer Warters is a member of the Rainbow Light Foundation, and she's been with us before. She talked with us about elemental light. Her Rainbow Light Network was founded by Carol Lamb, who's also been on our show. And the Rainbow Light Foundation is a healing and teaching organization. Their members live and work together in a spiritual community in the north of England. Jennifer has had many years of experience. She's a therapist, and she has a particular interest in sound therapy and the effects of sound, and she specializes in toning, and we're going to get some exciting examples of that today. Jennifer Warters runs an international online clinic for the successful treatment of tinnitus, and if you've ever had a ringing in the ear that couldn't go away, she can fix that, or her technique can fix that. And she's also a senior tutor for the quantum light training programs. So I would like to welcome Jennifer Warters. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Tracy. Thank you for having me.
It's lovely to have you back. Last time we got started with our talk, something called the Emerald Alignment. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
The Emerald Alignment is an energy alignment technique that we all use in Rainbow Light Foundation, and we're wanting to pass it all around the world, and it's free, and it's a way of connecting to and aligning with our higher intuitive faculties, higher streams of consciousness. And there are 3 distinct stages of the alignment process. So it's important to maintain focus. And the first part is it enables us to let go of tension and anxiety and worry. And then through the visualization, we can focus on the physical body. And that helps to synchronize the sort of the major and minor chakras of the subtle energy system. I suppose many of your listeners will know about chakras, which are energetic power points. And then there's a sealing process at the end of the alignment, which enables us to keep all the positive energy that we've aligned within so that we don't lose that energy. I've been practicing it for 18 years and I strongly recommend it. And I'm delighted that you're going to play it on the show for us.
Oh, I can't wait. So our listeners can relax and get yourself comfortable, and we'll listen to the Emerald Alignment.
Sit or stand comfortably and take a moment to be aware of the thoughts and the feelings in the body, and aware of the crown of the head. Begin to breathe slowly down through the body, following the line of the spine, breathing down the spine, allowing any heaviness to fall away to the lower body as you breathe to the base of the spine. Aware of the hips and breathing down to the thighs, the knees, the lower legs, the ankles, the heels, and through the feet to the toes, out and away from the toes. And again from the crown of the head, breathing down to the top of the spine, across the shoulders, and down the arms, elbows to the wrists and into the palms of the hands, out and away from the fingers and thumbs. And pause and be aware of the body feeling lighter and more relaxed. And again to the crown of the head. Visualize a point of light above the crown of the head. And see the point as the colour emerald green. And breathing in and breathing down the body, drawing the emerald green to the crown and down through the body, through the spine, breathing down to the base of the spine and down to between the heels. And visualize the emerald line from the crown to the heels and into the earth. Feel the body straight and balanced each side of that line. And again to the crown of the head, drawing the emerald green down to the top of the spine and across the shoulders. See the beam of emerald green from shoulder to shoulder, holding the shoulders straight and balanced. And draw the emerald green down through the arms, elbows to the wrists and into the palms of the hands. Aware now of the body feeling lighter, calm and relaxed. At a distance of arm's length, draw a circle of blue right around the body and visualize that circle as a clear, strong blue outline, sealing and protecting all of the positive energy within as you breathe slowly back into the center of the body to a calm, peaceful feeling.
And Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing that with us. So I'm curious about what sparked your interest in working with sound. Like, why sound?
Well, it's interesting because my initial training was as a speech and language therapist way back in the 60s, where I was interested in voice and I worked with children and adults with speech and language problems. When I was training in London, I did a lot of work with adults with learning disabilities and children with special needs and children with hearing impairment. And I was very aware of the effect of vibration, because although they couldn't hear the words, they could feel the vibration. And when I was working with adults with learning disabilities, often they didn't have actual speech, but they responded to sound.
Oh, interesting.
And because speech comes from the left side of the brain hemisphere,
Yes.
and creative sounds and tones come from the right side of the hemisphere, I used to make sounds, particularly to the ones who were severely physically impaired, and noticed that they responded. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. And when I left my training, I worked in hospitals and community clinics. And I realized that the way I was working with speech was too limiting, really. I felt there was much more happening. And I felt that if I worked in a creative, more intuitive way, I was getting more results and my experience with my clients was more pleasurable. But I didn't understand why. And it wasn't until I started my holistic training with the Academy of Spiritual Sciences and Carol Lamb that I discovered a lot more about sound. I mean, I didn't think of sound then in terms of it being the most creative and powerful force in the universe.
Right, right. Yeah, we often do focus on light rather than sound.
That's right. And I hadn't stopped to think that we're actually made of sound, that sound is actually energy in motion.
Yes,
And
yes.
everything is moving and vibrating and making a sound. But of course, that sound is imperceptible to our ears.
Oh, I love that we're energy in motion. That's beautiful. What an incredible perspective.
There are sounds all the time, and everything within our body is vibrating. The cells in our body are vibrating. The universe is vibrating. I mean, vibration rules the world and rules the universe. And I suddenly had a view of sound that was completely different from the very limited perception of sound I had before. And then I began to understand in my holistic training that all matter, physical matter in the material world, is crystallized light and crystallized vibration.
Oh, crystallized light and crystallized vibration.
Yes.
That is very harmonious with the concept that I have for the universal mind, which is 501c3 private charity, that we do kind of phase into the physical dimension or precipitate down into the physical dimension, and we become crystallized, and then that divine light shows through us. And I think of that as our chakras, because like a crystal refracts. Yeah, I really like that.
It's a downloading process. A bit like we download things onto the computer, we need to download the higher frequencies to the lower frequencies. And I believe, and we teach at the Academy of Spiritual Sciences, that every sound comes from a pure single ripple of vibration that creates a harmonious field of light and sound. And then as these frequencies are stepped down, they come together in sympathetic resonance.
Oh, yes. The only exposure I got to that concept was I was dating this guy back in the day, and he took me to an Eckankar service. And I was very intrigued by the concept that they viewed God as light and sound. And, all of us are etching out our own viewpoints of what the divine is. I doubt any of us in a lifetime could possibly understand the totality of whatever that is, universe, God, the source, however we perceive that. But how fascinating.
But I just love that concept. And it's like everything vibrates at its own vibratory rate. And it can be a star, a stone, a tree.
We can sense that vibration.
Yeah. And that's why we relate to certain people, because we have a sympathetic resonance with them. That's why it's really important to keep good company.
That's very profound, because I've heard, like, if you tune a tuning fork, hit it on something and you have another tuning fork maybe in your other hand or someone's hand across the room, that other fork will begin picking up the resonance of the original initiation of the sound.
That's it.
Oh, and that goes into empathic abilities. I kind of think that psychics and mediums are sort of here to herald in a shift or something, because first of all, our natural awareness from the dawn of time, we're born this way. This isn't something so unusual. And there are other philosophies and religious viewpoints that come from the East. And here, right, with the Native American traditions in the United States and Canada have honored that aspect of ourself. So it really isn't so different. So I think of it sort of as a reawakening of the Western cultures. And psychics, mediums, healers are here to help people remember who they are. And this new generation that's coming in is so sensitive. They almost would look at us like, why would you need to do that? Or what's the big deal? Or you don't do that too? They're already another wavelength forward or something. I kind of think that after maybe a generation or two, I don't know how long it would take for that awareness to become contagious. one vibration connecting to another, to where what I do for a living right now would seem unnecessary, I'm quite sure.
I love the term sympathetic resonance, which is the same. I've done a lot of work with children with special needs and using sort of very practical things. And I've always recommended that the parents hang a crystal at the window so that when the sun shines through the crystal, it shows refracted light in rainbows all around the room. And that's to remind the child that they're rainbows.
Now it makes sense, the name of the foundation that you serve within, the Rainbow Light Foundation.
Yes. It's like white light is a combination of all the colors, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Before the show, you provided me with sort of some topics to touch on as possibilities. And one of them that caught my attention was, how do ancient people view sound? What would you have to say about that?
Well, I think the ancient people knew all about sound. They knew the healing effect of sound. They understood the effect of sound upon the body and the effect of sound upon the environment, and the difference between making a sound individually or making it collectively. And they also knew that certain sounds would raise the frequencies to bring health and other sounds would lower the frequencies. And I think this is taught in martial arts, and maybe I'll say a little bit about that. Yeah, how we can sustain the optimum frequencies of our bodies. But the ancient people, they used instruments, but I think they were always wanting to invoke the deities. They always were aware, I think, that there was something greater than ourselves.
Yes.
They wanted to call to them. They needed to listen rather than to be heard. I think now we always want to be heard, but actually the idea is to listen so that we can hear that higher frequency voice, that inner voice.
I think that's possibly the conventional difference between prayer and meditation.
Yeah.
Prayer is invoking the assistance of higher beings, God, angels, etc., saints, in order to facilitate things that we want in our life. But meditation or psychic development would be absorbing and reflecting and just being the observer of information and being the conduit of information. Or I don't know if the conduit is the right name.
No, I think that's right. It's like being a channel, isn't it? I agree with the word conduit.
Yeah. When you said martial arts, my ears perked up because I've been a lifetime martial arts student. I've studied Ishinryu and Tai Chi and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai and Judo. So what were you thinking when you mentioned martial arts?
The core, that can drop the energy of the solar plexus. And they've done a lot of research which says that to maintain the health of the human body, we must sustain a frequency of 62 to 78 hertz, and hertz are subcycles per second. And the immune system is compromised when this frequency is lowered. So it's how we can raise the frequency or lower it. And apparently, if it drops to 58 hertz, cold and flu symptoms arise. And if the frequency drops to 52, then the Epstein-Barr virus develops, which is the common
autoimmune range.
That's right.
Yes.
So, and if it drops to 42, then, we can develop cancer cells. Because we're all trying to get back to harmony. And it's actually looking at how we can use harmonious sound to maintain this frequency, this positive frequency of the body.
That's really interesting, that connection. We talk about raising our vibration, but we don't really think of it as, in general, I don't think people think of it in terms of raising our sound, our light. We think of light, but we don't think of sound.
That's right. And we can sustain our vibration and maintain it by being in a harmonious environment, by monitoring the thoughts that we have, by listening to positive music, by being with people with whom we are harmonious, by watching the language that we use, because words are very, very powerful.
Yes, they are. I was thinking about meditation or reflection and thinking about that state of quietude or stillness that we get where we can see, hear, feel, know. and that kind of timeless place that we access where time just stops and then we experience. And I'm just fascinated that toning could shift a vibration very quickly to a different resonance. It makes perfect sense, if you think about the tuning forks. That's very interesting. What is the purpose of toning? Not toning up as in push-ups, but...
It is toning up, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, different way. Tuning up, or I don't know.
Well, the point I sort of want to make as well is that we need silence. And we don't get silence as much these days. And the ancient people knew all about silence.
I have been working so hard to create moments of silence. I actually joked with a friend the other day. I said, I'm going to take a vow of silence on Wednesdays so that I can recharge. And I was feeling so guilty about it, but I like it that you said we need silence.
Oh, I think, Tracy, it's so important. The thing is, our ears are becoming dulled now. We're being dumbed down. Within the sort of the inner ear, there are millions and millions of little hair cells, tiny cilia, that pick up the higher frequencies. And they didn't because we're not hearing them. We don't hear bird calls. That's why we don't go out into nature. The sounds of nature, the wind rustling through the trees, the babbling of a brook, the bird calls, these are all high-frequency sounds, and the sacred sounds are high-frequency sounds, and this voice is a high-frequency sound, and there's a difference between hearing and listening. We hear sound, but to listen, it takes effort and focused intention, and unless we have silence, we can't train ourselves to listen.
You know how the universe deposits things into our lives that or draws our attention to certain things. And I was thinking about a book. It was a small book written by Madame Blavatsky at the turn of the century. And I believe it was called The Voice of Silence.
Oh, yes, I know that.
Something along that lines. Finding the answers when we hit that point of quietude.
Yeah. And just taking time to pause. I can't stress it enough. But we're in a cacophony of noise and sound now.
We are, and our schedules are so intense that it's very rare to find someone that actually takes 8 or 9 hours to sleep.
Yes.
Or if they do, that sleeps well during that time. That cacophony of sound, that's very interesting. Our televisions, the voices of people that are not always building our energy with like energy, or, they might be draining our energy because their focus is more negative.
Shall I tell you a little bit about toning?
Please.
This is such a vast subject, isn't it? But I love it.
Yes, tell us about toning.
Okay. Well, just to know, I think it was Alfred Tomatis who said that the human voice is the best nourishment for the brain. And that I totally believe that we can heal ourselves with our own voice. Oh. And toning is about using the voice with focused intention, using a specific sound. It's a very ancient system of healing.
Wow.
So simply that's what it is. By making tones, which are specific vibrations, which also correspond to a colour on the rainbow spectrum. So it's colour and sound. By making specific sounds, we can break up the molecular structure of dense, entrapped, solidified matter within our body that causes resistance and stops the energy, the chi, from flowing through and around us.
Yes. Wow. My mind is just overwhelmed with wonderful ideas that the light and the sound are so synchronistic within us. One and the same in a way. Do you think it's the sound that generates the light, or the light that generates the sound?
In the beginning was the word. It's like light and sound came together.
Yes, was the word. Yes.
It's like, and the breath.
Yeah, and the light shone upon the shadows. Before we get back into our show, I want to give you information in case you want to kind of Google and check her out during the show. Her website is rainbowlightfoundation.net. If you've missed the beginning of this show or because you did tune in late, please feel free to check out past episodes. We try to have them up within the week after the show on YouTube for your enjoyment. They're also listed on my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. I just want to thank you for affirming that part about us being crystallized in the material dimension. That was an experiential thing that I received, and it just made me so happy to hear it. It must be happening everywhere.
I was just thinking, in an ideal world, every word that we speak is a jewel of crystallized thought. That's why it's really important that we monitor our thoughts, because energy follows thought.
Yes.
What we think, the energy follows that. And that's what happens. And that's all about epigenetics and how our belief system affects our perception. And our belief system is conditioned by past experience and memory imprints from this early life and other lives. And our belief system affects our future. So if we want change, it's really important to look carefully at our belief system and change it where possible.
Absolutely. Esther Hicks channels Abraham, a collective consciousness, and she talks about a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. And Mike Dooley from Messages from the Universe at tut.com talks about thoughts become things. And that's that concept, isn't it, of creation through our words and through our thoughts.
That's right. I think what sort of impressed me most when I came into this work was the realization that we're spiritual beings in physical bodies, and that we're within an envelope of subtle energy with layers of vibration that correspond to our thoughts and feelings. So any resistance that we have, any negative thought, affects the flow of energy coming into our physical bodies and then impacts on us physically to give way to disorder and disease. Whereas we always think, don't we, of the medical model. I mean, and I come from the medical profession. The medical model thinks that it's all about the symptom. And we just go to the symptom, whereas we have to trace and body map right back to see what was going on before that symptom manifested.
Yes, you were talking about working with people that had learning disabilities.
Yeah.
And, you know, people get a little confused because we're so used to looking at the physical world. But the way that I've sort of differentiated it in my mind, just so I understand it, is that we have our brain, which is the physical part. It can be damaged through injury, through toxicity, to exposure to toxins, through negative thinking, because our thoughts do have power and our words do have power, so it can physically affect us. And then we have our mind, which is that eternal part of us that perceives, and it's perfect and never needs to rest, never needs sleep, is able to comprehend. Even if somebody had a stroke, for instance, and had their speech ability muted or taken, their comprehension is perfect. And same thing for someone in a coma. They may not look like they're aware, but they are there. And so I'm very intrigued about how toning is used. Tell us some more.
Right. Before I say some more about toning, I think it's really important for us to realize that we have an upper and a lower mind. So there are higher frequencies in the higher mind, which links to our higher wisdom, our higher self, where all the best we've ever been is up there in our higher mind. And we have our lower, rational, analytical mind. And of course, adults with learning disabilities have a limited capacity in the mental faculties, the lower mind, but their higher mind is intact. So what the toning and the alignment process does, it reconnects them to their higher mind.
Great.
Fires the neurons. I mean, I've seen wonderful things happen. The speech starts to develop. The adult may become more sociable. He may begin to speak. We all need to connect to our higher minds. About discernment, which is something that we need to develop, because that's about connecting to wisdom and having discernment.
You know, I want to elaborate on the concept of discernment. That's one of the gifts, and not all our listeners come from a traditional Christian background, nor do I necessarily adhere completely that way. It does talk in First Corinthians about the gift of discerning of spirits. Discernment, being able to differentiate, classify, identify, sort out, is something that's done through our feelings, our emotional base. Intuitively. Yes.
To link up to our intuitive faculties.
Yes.
And I think that's very important, because I think we have to be very discerning about channeling. I was given this system of 8 rainbow chakra tones by a channeled guide. What? Rainbow Light Foundation is a channeled organization, and I know you've talked to Carol Lamb, who's the founder, and everything is based on the channel guidance received.
The same with the universal mind. That's right. Cool. Wow.
And when I first met Carol in 98, she introduced me to the Emerald Alignment, and she was the first one to receive it. And I had to spend a lot of time aligning and clearing my own energy through a healing process. And then the guide who was guiding the organization called to see me and asked if I'd be willing to teach toning under the name of Light Voice, which was the project name I was given. And I didn't know anything about toning. And he taught me the tones. He told me how they would impact on the body. And then I had to teach the therapists.
Oh, that's incredible.
He said, would I teach them? I left the National Health Service and thought, this is where I want to be, because what the Emerald Alignment does as well, it connects you to your life plan and purpose. You all have a purpose in this life. And I realized that this is what I needed to do. And I didn't know anything about toning, but I just taught it as he told me. He explained the tones and what they did and a system of breathing and told me to teach the therapists. So I can remember the first time I went into this room and I had to send a letter of invitation to all the therapists of the organisation, and there were 25 who sat in this room, and I had to teach them these sounds.
Wow, how interesting. Would you be willing to demonstrate some of those?
I would love to.
I would love like, to. Well, what's it like? So...
Okay, the first tone I'm going to demonstrate is the tone for the solar plexus chakra, because these are chakra tones. Each tone resonates with a specific chakra, which links to a specific anatomical area. As well as resonating with the chakra, they affect then the area that this chakra links to. So the solar plexus chakra is positioned at the center of the abdomen and links to emotional response via the digestive system. And that's why we get ulcers if we worry. And at the higher level, it manifests as stability and peace. And in health, this chakra is observed as a clear golden yellow. And this is the tone.
Beautiful. I could feel it in my body when you did that.
It's about thinking of a disc in front of the solar plexus.
So by toning, you're creating a resonance that's replicated in the body of the person that's receiving the therapy.
That's right. Or you can do it for yourself. I've written a manual. It's about how you can heal yourself by making these tones.
Oh, what's the name of the manual?
It's the Rainbow Chakra Tones Manual.
Available on the website?
Yeah, if you go to Rainbow Light Foundation website to creative projects, Light Voice is there, and it brings up all my pages and articles on the toning. And I've made CDs and manuals. But you can make this tone yourself. And what it does, it stabilizes the emotions. Because unless our emotions are stable, we can't get into our hearts.
Probably have this with our emotions at some point here.
Exactly.
I wanted to just clarify those details. Interesting.
The next tone I'm going to make is for the throat chakra. And the throat chakra links to all aspects of voice, and it's positioned at the throat. It links to the bronchial area, the lungs, and the eustachian tube, which is that tube which is the passage that links the back of the throat to the inner ear. And the throat chakra is shaped like an egg, and it's divided into an upper and a lower level. And the lower level governs the ability to speak truthfully by engaging with the heart and connecting to peace and stillness rather than responding emotionally from the solar plexus. And in health, It's a clear sky blue, and this is the tone.
Yes.
It's really good to make the throat tone, which is ooh, double O, ooh. You know, if you've got to say something and you want it to be heard, or, you know, you need to say something important and you've been in distress, it's important to calm your emotions and practice this tone, but also before public speaking or if nervous. It's a really good tone to practice.
Oh, you know, I'm getting this memory of even like gorillas when they get upset or nervous. They make a lower version of that tone, but it's ooh, 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 ooh.
Of course.
You know? And I thought, wow.
And also, it's to know that there isn't a specific pitch. Everyone makes the tone at their own pitch.
Oh, okay.
So they don't have to copy my pitch. It can be made at their best pitch.
Oh, wonderful.
People used to ask me and say, what pitch is this tone? It's very simple, but it's very profound. You make the tone at your own pitch.
Wow.
And it works. And this clears the throat.
Thank you.
And shall I make the heart chakra?
I would love it. I would love it.
Finally.
Love.
Well, the heart chakra, as we all know, is positioned at the center of the chest. And at the physical level, it links to emotional connection and the autonomic nervous system. And at the higher level, it links to wisdom and intuition. And in health, it's observed as a clear apple green. Mm-hmm. And the tone is Ha, which is H-A, Ha. And I'm going to make it for you now. Oh.
I felt that one too.
Oh, good.
Dead center. Beautiful.
Good. Oh, I'm really pleased. Thank you, Tracy. I've been able to demonstrate 3 of the tones. There are 8 tones, and there are 2 for the base, because the base is the cellar of our consciousness, and we hold impacted energy and negativity and the cycle of addiction. It all goes on in the base, the root chakra. So there's a tone which sounds like a pneumatic drill, and then there's another tone that dissipates the energy that's thrown up. Shall I make it?
Yeah, I'd love it, actually.
Yeah,
if you felt, You're so generous. Thank you. Yes.
I think it's so wonderful to have an opportunity to pass this on. I mean, this was given to me, and I was just told to go out and teach it. So it's lovely to have an opportunity. And this was back in the year 2000.
Wow.
At Rainbow Light Foundation, there are light voice toning teachers as well. So a lot of people have been taught to teach this. As well as the public. So this is the first bass tone, and it sounds like a pneumatic drill.
Wow.
And the color is red, and it links to the kidneys.
Oh, that's like the center of acidosis in the body. That's really important to disperse that. How do you dismiss that? You said that there are 2 tones.
So the first one, you have to imagine a spiral of vibrant red energy spiraling into the earth as you make that tone, and it vibrates up the spine. And this is the second bass tone, and it's ER, and this dissipates the energy that's broken up. It's a bit like a pneumatic drill. It breaks up. The first one breaks up the molecular structure of this matter that's impacted, and this tone gobbles it up.
You know, I can feel that as well, and I can understand sort of intuitively how the drill sound, it's almost like withdrawing the drill, but it's pulling it up clean with the core cleaned out.
That's right.
It's very beautiful. I can't believe that we have come so far in the hour, and I know that you have exercise for our listeners, and I don't want to miss it. I want to confirm that tinnitus can be healed through toning, correct?
That's right. And all the details are on my website, and it's through a process of toning and alignment.
And that's rainbowlightfoundation.net.
And that's at Rainbow Light Foundation, yes.
Well, what have you got for our parting exercise for our listeners here?
Well, I've got a crystal bowl with me, and this crystal bowl resonates to the frequency of the thymus, which is situated midway between the throat and the heart, and that's where we have our spiritual connection.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to play this crystal bowl for you, and if our listeners close their eyes and listen, it will attune them and align their energies. Shall I do it now?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Sorry. No, I know I'm usually interrupting. Yes.
Thank you for having me on the program.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Jennifer Warters, for joining us today. And please, our listeners, check her out on rainbowlightfoundation.net. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That's beautiful. I doubt if any of our listeners did not feel that in their thymus. That's to attune and open up your awareness. So Thank you again for joining us. I hope that our listeners have enjoyed this week's show, and I know I did. I always learn something different when I have a guest, and I hope to have you back another time, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. If you enjoyed the show and you wanted to schedule a private reading with me, or if you wanted psychic tutoring, or if you wanted to know more about everything that you've heard here, you can find past episodes on my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. I just will see you next week for a view of life from a medium's perspective. And remember, it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing.